Today we're going to be making pork tenderloin cutlets with caramelized onions and a mustard sauce, which is really easy to put together. Do yourself a favor and prep everything first. So I'll run through the ingredients that we've got. We have 6 cloves of garlic that we've sliced, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of white wine vinegar, 2 teaspoons of dried thyme, 3 tablespoons of spicy brown mustard, 1 onion sliced, 5 tablespoons of chicken broth, and about a pound to a pound and a half pork tenderloin that I've already sliced into about 1/2 inch thick pieces. You want to get them all pretty close to the same width so they'll cook at the same time, but you can make some adjustments while you're cooking. And in the skillet, we've got 8 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. So we're going to get the heat going on that first, and this will take a few minutes. But what we're going to do is we're going to saute this garlic, and that's going to be the base for everything else that we do. We don't want to do too much. We just want it to start to turn golden. And what it's going to do is it's going to infuse the garlic flavor into this olive oil, which sets a really great foundation of flavor for everything else. You can see some of the smaller pieces are already starting to turn brown. So I'm going to lower the heat. We want it golden, but we just don't want it too done. I'm going to turn that off and just let the heat of the oil kind of continue to cook, but I definitely want to turn the temperature off for a minute. Okay, we're done with the garlic, and what we're going to do now is we're going to put it into a bowl and we're going to add some other ingredients to it. So this is hot, so you have to be careful. Okay, so we're going to let that, you can see it's still really hot, so we're going to ignore that for a few minutes and let it cool down, and then we're going to be adding some other ingredients to it. So this was a recipe actually clipped out of a magazine that was under something that caught my attention, which is 30-minute meals. Over the years I've sort of tweaked. I followed the recipe the first time and it was great, but we made it some adjustments. It didn't have enough sauce to it, so we increased the volume on almost all the ingredients, toned down a couple of other things, and it's just kind of perfected itself over the years. Okay, so we're on to the next step. The garlic and the olive oil has had a chance to cool down just a little bit, and what I've done is I've taken 3 tablespoons of the olive oil out of the garlic, and I'm setting it aside because that garlic infused olive oil is what we're going to use to saute the pork, and then later on the onions. So what we have is we have the remaining olive oil here with all that golden garlic in it, and what we're going to do is whisk a few other ingredients in. So we are going to start with the chicken broth, and that's 5 tablespoons of chicken broth, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, two tablespoons of white wine vinegar, 2 teaspoons of dried thyme. Originally the recipe called for fresh thyme, but I found that using dried thyme just gives it a little bit more zip. The flavor of the dried herbs is always a little bit more intense. And then we're going to finish up with 2 tablespoons of spicy brown mustard. Okay, so we've got that whisked together and we're going to set that aside. Now we're going to go back and saute the pork. Cooking in this kitchen is a little bit of a challenge This house was built in 1902, before there was indoor plumbing. So, and it's a propane stove. This particular stove doesn't have the heat of a commercial oven, a commercial stove, so we do the best we can. So what I've done is I've added about half that oil. We're going to cook the pork in 2 batches. One of the things that's really important to remember is not to crowd the meat. So we've got this up, we're waiting for this oil to heat up.
They're probably wondering who the voice is that's talking. I'm David, I'm the videographer slash Sarah's husband.
Slash taster.
Slash taster, that's right. And she couldn't be more right about the house here. It's an old farmhouse, literally an old farmhouse, and up in the western part of Colorado. And we have an incredible view of the mountains right out through our window. We love living here. However, cooking in this kitchen definitely has its limitations.
And days like today we're snowed in, which is a perfect day to cook. Yeah, you'll notice the oil's a little bit off too, because the floors are kind of crooked, which means the stove is kind of crooked, which means there's always a lot of balancing going on. And I'm just messing with this. I'm putting half the pork in. Again, we don't want to crowd it. Oh, that's probably good.
What's the purpose of not crowding it?
So it heats evenly. It doesn't get too moist. What'll happen if you put too much meat in the pan is it'll end up steaming itself, and it won't get a nice crisp. It won't brown nicely, and it's just what happens is the moisture from the meat ends up just kind of steaming the rest of it. You want it to brown. You don't want it to poach. I should also mention that it's important after you slice the pork tenderloin, you want to pat it dry with a paper towel, because you always want to start with meat that's been dried off. You don't want an excessive amount of moisture. Okay, we're about ready to turn this over.
So how do you know when it's ready to turn over?
You can see that the color starts to change. It's still red on the top, but you can see that it's cooking. And you can also just turn it over and see that it's nice and getting golden brown.
So you just want that nice golden brown.
Think of something that you want to eat. So when it starts looking like something you want to put in your mouth, then that'll be an indicator. Okay, we're just going to let this finish on this side, and then we're going to do the second batch. We are on the second batch of pork, and you can see it's browned. So what we've done with the first batch is we're just transferring it to a tray and keeping it tinted with foil to keep it warm. But it's going to get heated up again anyway. So we're just going to let this rest for a little while and move on to the next step. We've got a little bit of extra oil in there, and you can see that there's some brown bits from the pork left over, and we're going to keep those in there because it's going to add flavor. And now we have 1 onion that I've sliced, and we're going to just saute that. I'm going to start out on high and then lower the temperature in a little bit. And this takes a while because we want it to get nice and golden brown. So we're just going to let these onions cook down. As these are browning a little bit, you can kind of see that they've released some moisture and picked up all the little brown bits that the pork left in the bottom of the pan. And what we're going to do now, just to let them continue cooking, is we're going to cover them. And that'll keep them nice and moist.
And what are you doing with the heat?
I've got it on about a medium right now. And they're going to go for between 4 and 6 minutes, depending on how your stove is. We're almost where we want the onions to be. You can see that they're nice. They've gotten nice and brown, and they're really limp, but we're still going to keep cooking them a little bit longer. I just want to add a little salt and pepper, and we're going to throw in about a ½ teaspoon of salt and a couple of grinds of pepper. You can always add more. I always like to be conscious of people that are on low salt diets, because you can always add more salt. Okay, Now we're just about ready. We're going to leave these in the pan and crank up the heat a little bit. Oh, I wish you could smell this.
It's amazing. Now, no, is it important to explain that while this has been cooking, you've been lifting the lid every once in a while?
Every couple of minutes, I just give it a quick check. There's a lot of room for error with onions like this too, unless they burn. Okay, this is the infusion, the oil infusion with the herbs, the sugar, the vinegar that we added before. So now we're just going to add this.
Ooh. Oh, the aroma.
You can smell the mustard.
That's incredible.
It's a nice combination. There's a little bit of acid with that white wine vinegar and the mustard, and then you've got the brown sugar, and that rounds it out. So we're just going to let that cook down a little bit until it thickens up. And we're going to put this over the pork cutlets, and we're in for a delightful dinner. You can see how this is reduced and thickened up, and it's gotten a nice golden brown. The flavors have all mellowed a little bit, so we're going to turn this off. And while that was cooking, I plated up the pork, and we're just going to spoon this onion mixture over. And you've got some options when it comes to serving this. I like to do it over mashed potatoes or along with mashed potatoes, but basically you can put it over a baked potato, you can do pasta, you can do rice, whatever is your personal taste.
I'm telling you, it's a hard time for me holding this camera.
And you can see those lovely little bits of garlic in there that have gotten nice and soft and really infused everything with that garlic flavor. So between the garlic and the onions and the mustard, it's just a wonderful blend.
Wow.
And one of the benefits of being the cameraman is that you get to be the first one to taste it. Here's the first taste.